Good morning, Spruce Society. My name's Kelowna Giuliano, if we haven't met before, and I'm excited to talk about oils and emotions today, and specifically releasing emotional patterns with essential oils. So I know some people will be watching live and others will come back for the replay, but you're going to want to grab these two oils if you have them. We're going to use Valor and we're going to use Envision if you have them. And if you don't worry about it. You can put them on your wish list and come back and do this later. So hi Debbie, this is going to be short and sweet, but hopefully very impactful and educational. So I love talking about the topic essential oils and emotions, because I was really skeptical when I first heard that you could use oils for emotions, and I just didn't really understand it. And I actually thought that the term like emotional release was a little bit scary. So I kind of just didn't buy into it at first until I had some experiences in my own body, and then saw some experiences in others that really changed my mind, and then kind of learned a little bit of the science behind how it works. So the first thing that I would love for you to do right now is to tune in to how you're feeling right now. Like, just take a minute and think about one word that describes how you feel in this moment. And you can write it down in the comments. And if you're coming back to watch the replay, you can hashtag replay, but just pay attention to how you feel. Think about one word and then write that down. And that's important because oftentimes we don't really pay attention to our feelings or our emotional state until something gets really loud, right? Until we're in pain or we're sick or something is really physically wrong, and then we're like, what's wrong with me? And it kind of catches us off guard. So my intention in sharing about oils and emotions is to help you pay more attention to how your feelings and your emotional state affects your physical body. And there is a direct correlation, and the more that we start paying attention to that, the more we can make that connection, and the healthier and happier we're going to be. And then we can teach others about this. And that's where it's at, right? Is to make a change in our own, body and mind and spirit and emotions, and then be able to show other people how they can care for themselves better. It's empowering. And so I love paying attention to how we feel, because we can shift our feelings really quickly by using essential oils. And oils work on this incredible level because our pure, young living, seed to seal essential oils are super powerful. We know how potent they are and how pure they are. And when we smell them, our sense of smell is directly connected to the limbic part of the brain. And you don't need to know that. All you need to know is that our sense of smell is the only one of our five senses that is connected to that portion of the brain. And that portion of the brain is our emotional center. So its nickname is the seat of the emotions. It's where we store past trauma and memories, and it's closely linked to the parts of the brain that control heart rate and blood pressure and hormones and all of these physiological functions. So when you're smelling an essential oil, you're actually having a really quick response in this emotional center, and then it's affecting all of this physiology in the centers right around that in your brain. And so that's why sometimes you've probably experienced using an oil and noticing a shift very quickly, or you've seen that in someone else. I've even seen someone smell an oil and tears well up in their eyes. And they're like, what is wrong? Why is this happening? And it can be really quick, and you don't always know what it is. But just knowing that our sense of smell is connected directly with that seat of our emotions is very empowering, because if you are noticing yourself feeling a dip in your vitality and energy and your mood, and you want to shift your mood, you can literally open a bottle of oil and take a whiff of it, maybe something uplifting like a citrus oil, and you can shift the way you feel pretty quickly. It's not like it's going to solve all your problems, but you can have this quick shift by paying attention to smelling something that's pleasant to you, right? And we have examples of that, like if you've ever smelled baking bread or cookies and it takes you back to a time in your childhood, right? That's one of those examples of where, you can smell something and it brings you back to a certain time. So I love just talking more about that and making that connection. And I love that people are interested in learning about emotions and oils, because I feel like it's sometimes, like I was saying, it's a topic I was really skeptical about, and not everybody is really willing to work on themselves. It's easier just to numb out, right? It's easier just to not pay attention to how we feel, to kind of stuff our feelings and bury them. And some people, we all on some level use different distractions to not pay attention to what we're feeling, because it can be uncomfortable, right? So we use some people use alcohol, some people use, different kinds of substances, scrolling, TV. Like, we just need to not pay attention to how we feel sometimes, because it can be really uncomfortable. But a lot of Gary Young's teachings take us back into paying attention to how we can heal ourselves on different levels, and paying attention to these feelings and emotions and using the oils to release them and let them go. It's really freeing, and it actually makes us feel a lot better, not just emotionally, but it ends up affecting our physical health. And there is a direct correlation between our physical health and our emotions. And in the book, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die by Carol K. Truman, which is not an essential oils book, but she talks about, in that title alone, you're like, oh, feelings buried alive never die. It sounds like very scary. But she talks about what happens when you kind of suppress different feelings and emotions and past trauma, and you never let them out. They do end up turning into physical dis-ease. And the quote in her book that totally caught my attention, it's actually out of Prevention magazine, and it says 90% of all physical problems have psychological roots. So now, after learning this, when I feel a sore throat coming on, or I feel something in my physical body that's not right, instead of instantly thinking like, I have a virus, I got to go grab my thieves or whatever. I'm so non-compliant right now. Sorry about that. But anyway, when I have something wrong in my physical body, I don't always just think about the physical problem. I go to my books and my resources and I look up, like, why would my throat be bothering me right now? Is there something I need to express? Is there something I'm holding back? And it's a different way of thinking, but time and time again, I have realized that I'm holding in angry words. You're angry at your spouse or your kid or I don't know what, and you maybe are holding something there. And as soon as you become aware, sometimes just becoming aware of it and breathing some oils, or maybe putting on an oil that's for the throat chakra, or just bringing awareness to it, that whatever physical thing goes away. And I can't explain how it works, but I just know that it works because I've been doing it for 9 years, ever since I had learned about this book, Releasing Emotional Patterns with Essential Oils by Dr. Carolyn Mine. A lot of people refer to it as the Blue Book. This book has totally changed my life. And so I gather people in my living room, we go through this book, I teach people how to use it. It's kind of a reference guide. It's not really like a read cover to cover. It's like you learn how to look up either physical things in your body on the charts, or different emotions, or different oils. You can kind of do it in a lot of different ways to let go of things that we're holding on to, and the pattern, like break the pattern that created it. Because when things happen in our life and we get triggered, and people make us angry or frustrated or whatever, it's not necessarily that person. It's something inside of us that's being triggered, and that's something for us to work on. Not that everyone out there is innocent, no one does anything bad, but when something happens, someone cuts you off on the road, or someone says something, mean comment online, whatever it is, and you have an emotional reaction where you're like, oh my gosh, and you get mad or you get sad or upset, you can go to this book and you can work with that emotion that just came up, and you can let go of it so that it's not getting stuck in your body and starting to cause something. And I just have so many amazing examples of how I've been able to kind of mitigate something physical by using this. So that's why I keep talking about it. So we are going to use the technique today. And if you have Valor, or if you have Envision, that those are the oils we're going to use. And if you don't, you can just listen and maybe jot down a couple notes, or come back and watch, keep watching, but you can also come back later with those oils and walk yourself through it. And you might want to even if we do it right now, we go through this little technique that we're going to do, and you want to come back and try it again later, it's kind of fun to do it multiple times and see what changes, because like anything, you can do it once and you can feel something, but the more you do it, the more you're going to get out of it, and then you can get yourself a copy of the book and start kind of playing around with it. So let me see if there's anything else I wanted to share. Yeah, basically there's just there are lots of studies and science out there that talks about how when we have these different feelings, it releases certain chemicals, and those get stored in our organs. So we actually store in our physical body emotions and feelings. And by working with the oils, we can start to kind of let those go so that we are not flooding those organs or glands or tissues with these certain hormones from our feelings, because it can stress out that area of our body on a physiological level, and that could lead to dis-ease, right? So if we all get kind of bogged down by our emotions at different times, we get in emotional ruts, we get, frustrated, and this is just a very freeing thing. The other thing I wanted to mention that Gary Young talks about is he studied how the ancient Egyptians did something called, cleansing of the flesh and blood. Is that what he called it? They would do this ritual, and it was, he learned about it he went to Egypt and learned about it from the hieroglyphics on the walls and visiting these different temples. But they basically did a ritual where they bathed in essential oil baths to release their emotions so that they could move forward in their life without all of that baggage. And he created, the feelings kit and different things that he taught based on what he learned from these ancient Egyptians and how they took care of themselves and used their essential oils. So I always think that's kind of cool. So if you have this book, you already know a little bit about it maybe, or maybe you got the book and you're like, I have no idea how to use that book. It's like really confusing or whatever. So there's an emotional reference guide, and you can always go to that reference guide and look up, abandonment, abuse, all these different things. And you're like, oh gosh, I need to work on like everything in this book. So you can do it that way. And once you look up, the emotion that you want to work with, it's going to tell you the oil to use, something that you say, and then the place on the body where you're going to apply the oil. And then there's a little 7-step technique, and it's the clearing emotional pattern technique. And so there's a page where it just tells you exactly what to do once you've figured out what you're going to work on. So I'm just going to walk you through that today, but it's really fun. So we are going to, hang on, I'm going to look at, I wrote down a couple things. So we are going to work on conflict or fear of conflict, and the oil for that is valor. And there are a bunch of other emotions that valor also helps with releasing the emotional pattern for, but we're going to work on just fear of conflict. So if you've ever found yourself in a situation where it just, I don't know if you can type in the comments if you've ever been in a situation where you just like don't want to deal with what it is. You don't want to have that conflict in your life, whether it's with a friend or a kid or someone in your business or, a spouse. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you that you can go to the conflict page under the emotional reference. And on that page, it's going to walk you through everything that we're going to use. So and I'm going to tell you what it is first, and then we'll go through it. So the other side of fear of conflict is peace. So that's what we're going to pay attention to the conflict, then we're going to pay attention to the peace, and I'll walk you through it. And then the way out, or the saying, is I am at peace. The oil is valor, and the place on the body is called the adrenal cortex. And this book is cool because it has a charts in the back of the book that will give you different points. I don't know if you can see that. Give different points where, because you're like, what's adrenal cortex? But it's this spot that's right above your belly button, basically. It's like 2 finger widths above your belly button. So that's the place that we are going to touch when we get to that point. So now that we know what we're going to do, I'm going to walk you through it. And we are going to feel into that fear of conflict. Feel into maybe a certain situation that you can think of, like the first thing that comes to mind where you're like, oh, the last conflict you had, or maybe something from a long time ago. So just allow yourself to feel that fear of conflict and just pay attention to it for a minute. And even if you don't have the oil, you can still kind of walk through this and allow yourself to feel these different things. You can grab your oil later. So after you've given yourself a minute to kind of feel into that situation or remember that situation, you're just using your brain to remember a situation and allow those feelings to come up. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to grab your Valor, and this is how I was taught to use oils, so this is how I teach people to use oils. You hold the bottle up and you allow a drop to fall into your hand. I know some people like jam the thing on their finger, like tap on their hand. Like I like to let it fall just because that's how I was taught. And then you can swirl the oil around with your peace fingers. That activates the oil to your energy. And then rub your hands together and just close your eyes and take a couple deep breaths of your Valor. And you can breathe into those memories that were coming up about the fear of conflict. So if you had something specific come up, you're going to remember that as you breathe your Valor. All right. Now that we've done that, kind of taking it into all of your cells, breathing that Valor in, we're going to feel into the other side of the emotion. So the other side of conflict is peace. So now you can allow yourself to just think about, what does it feel like to be at peace? Think of the word peace. Think of feeling peaceful, what that means to you. Maybe a peaceful place, maybe a situation or a time in your life when you felt peaceful. Just allow yourself to feel peace. And you're doing great. I wish I could see your faces, but that's okay. So after you've allowed yourself to feel peace, you're going to take what's left of that Valor and you're going to touch the spot just above your navel. And it can either be directly on your skin or not. And it's not so much like slathering that area with oil, it's just touching the area, the adrenal cortex, which is the corresponding area with this emotion. And this is Dr. Carolyn Mind's work, and you can read more about it in her book if you want to learn. But she's an incredible doctor. She's actually in Rancho Santa Fe, which is about 10 minutes from where I live, and I've gone to see her, and she combines acupuncture, chiropractic, and some other techniques. So you touch that spot right above your navel, and then the next places that you touch are right on top of your forehead. You'll notice there's like two little bumps, and you just touch those. Those are called your emotional points. And so you can touch them with your fingertips or with the palms of your hands. So you're just touching the emotional points. And then we're going to say the statement, which is the way out, that helps release the pattern that created that fear of conflict that we're holding on to. So the saying, or the way out, the mantra, whatever you want to call it, she calls it the way out, is I am at peace. And so you can say that out loud at least 3 times. I am at peace. I am at peace. And you can smell the oil while you do it if you want. You can kind of go back to breathing the Valor from your hands and just saying, I am at peace. And so that's it. That's the technique. And you could take longer to do that. You could take shorter to do that. You could repeat it several times a day. You could never do it again, and it still would have an effect. But if fear of conflict is something that you really struggled with, or that was something that like came up for you, you could do this technique with your Valor, and you could help yourself to let go of that pattern so that you wouldn't hang on to that and have it festering inside of you and causing something physical that you don't want. So that's the first one. And I would love to hear how you feel now, or how that experience was for you. So you can type in the chat and the comments, share with us. This is always more fun, interactive. Kind of hard to do it, just me looking at my phone, but I know you're listening and I know you're participating, so thank you. But I always like to hear stories, so you can share now, or if you have a dream or you have a situation come up over the next 24 hours or a week or month, send me a message, because sometimes that happens too. It seems very simple and very basic, but sometimes it has a very profound, what you just did has a very profound effect. So just know that. And let me see, the next oil that we're gonna use, if you have it, is Envision. And if you don't have Envision, or if you didn't have Valor, one thing that you can always do if you don't have the oil that the book is recommending is you can look at hey, what's in that blend? And let me see if I have any single oils that are in it. So maybe you have some geranium or some lavender. You could grab that and use that instead. It's not the exact same thing, but oils respond to intention. So you could hold that oil and you could say, I want this oil to help me release the emotion, whatever you're working on, right? So if you have Envision, grab it. The next one we're going to work with is overwhelm, feeling overwhelmed. And raise your hand if you've ever felt overwhelmed. Maybe you felt really overwhelmed recently. Maybe in summer you don't feel as overwhelmed because you have less on your calendar. Maybe you're more overwhelmed. I don't know, but I feel like overwhelm is something that I personally have used this technique with a lot, and it's been really helpful for me. So that's why I wanted to share it with you. So again, in the book, you go to the emotional reference under overwhelm, and it tells you all the things that we need to do as we go through that technique. So I love the oil Envision too, and you don't have to do this whole technique every single time. You could just use the oil, put it in your diffuser and take deep breaths of it. That could be how you continue to let go and work with the emotions. As long as we're using the oils regularly, smelling them, diffusing them, rubbing them on our bodies, we're getting the benefits. This is just one way to be very specific, but I use Envision all the time just because I love it. So, okay, I'm looking up overwhelm so that we can walk through the technique. All right, so the other side of overwhelm is vision. I focus my energy is the saying, and the place is, it's kind of next to your temples in your scalp a little bit, right here. So not right on your skin, but kind of in your hairline. And that is the place on the body. It's called the vision point. And again, it tells you on the chart. If you look in the charts in the back of the book, it shows you the side of the head right next to the eye, that vision point. Okay, so we're gonna do it. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna allow ourselves to feel overwhelmed for a second. And it's not always comfortable, but it's necessary. So just take a minute and allow yourself to feel any time recently or in the past when you have felt super overwhelmed. And just allowing yourself to feel that overwhelm. Noticing anything in your body that comes up, or any memories or specific times in your life when you felt overwhelmed. And then you're going to grab your Envision oil or geranium or lavender, one of the oils that are in Envision, and you're going to allow yourself to get a drop. My Envision oil might be almost out, so I'm going to have to pop the top off. You know this trick, right? Pop the top off of your oil and then be careful because there might be more in there than you think. Okay, swirl with your peace fingers. That just activates the oil to your energy. Rub your hands together and now take some deep breaths of that Envision oil, breathing it in to that feeling of overwhelm. Just taking some nice deep breaths. And then when you're ready, we're going to feel into the opposite of overwhelm. Now, in the book, she says the other side of overwhelm is vision. And if you ever come upon a word that you're like, That doesn't really describe the opposite of overwhelm for me. Think of whatever the opposite of overwhelm is for you. Maybe it's relaxed or calm or at peace. So whatever the opposite of overwhelm is for you, allow yourself to feel that. If you are not overwhelmed anymore, her word for it is vision. So just allow yourself to feel that. And then we're going to apply whatever is left in our hands of that Envision oil to the alarm point, or the access point, I like to call it, the vision point, which is kind of like just above the temples. So it's just touching that area. Again, you don't have to like pour oil on it. It's just touching that area. And then we're going to touch the emotional points on the forehead. So you could do it with your fingertips or your palms. And then we're going to say the saying, which is the way out that helps break that pattern of overwhelm. And that is, I focus my energy. So you can say that out loud at least 3 times. I focus my energy. I focus my energy. And you could close your eyes and start breathing the Envision from your hands and continue to say, I focus my energy, for as long as you need to, until you feel a shift. Sometimes you feel a little bit lighter, a little bit softer, the overwhelm melts away. And then whenever you feel complete, you can open your eyes, you can lower your hands, you can kind of come back into the room where you are, and that's something that you could repeat a couple times a day, a couple times a week, or whenever you feel overwhelmed. So I hope that that is helpful. I would love to hear how you feel after, from when you've kind of paid attention at the beginning of this to how you felt 30 minutes ago. And typically you feel different than you did. So if there's one word that describes how you feel now compared to how you felt whenever you joined us or before you started using the Envision and the Valor, I would love to hear what that word is. I know that even though I was talking the whole time and all of that, just taking the deep breaths of these 2 oils and kind of paying attention a little bit, I feel lighter. I feel more relaxed. I feel calmer. And when I first started, I was kind of like, I could feel my heart beating a little bit, like I was a little nervous. I was like, so pay attention to how you feel. You did great. Whatever you felt, whatever you noticed was awesome. I'd love to go back and read all of your comments. I didn't read them because I get distracted. So and big news. If you want to learn more about this technique specifically, Dr. Carolyn Mind and Leanne Anderson, who is in Spruce Society, will be leading a workshop on releasing emotional patterns specifically at convention. It's not actually part of convention, so you'll have to register. I'll have Leanne put the link in here, or I can come back and put the link in the comments. It's across the street at a hotel across the street from the Salt Palace. They're doing a workshop on Saturday, whatever the Saturday is in the afternoon. I forget the time. And if you like learning about oils and emotions, I'm speaking at convention this year. So I will be sharing more on oils and emotions, not just this technique, but just oils and emotions in general. So I hope that you come join that workshop. It's going to be on Thursday. And if you're not going to be there in person, you can always get a virtual ticket and you can watch virtually. So I hope you have a beautiful day, and I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.